Hello, my name is Kenneth Young, and this is a presentation for Dr. Christensen's Accounting 6100 class. And this is a presentation on the article called Who Needs Budgets? And the idea of the article, as a summary, is that budgets are outdated in their traditional sense, and that abandoning them, or at least changing them to something more modern and adaptive, is good for business, and it will help both customers, markets, and employees perform better. Um, when you think of a budget, in the traditional sense of the word, it's something that is predetermined and preset, usually by management, and sometimes with little or no input from lower level employees. And this kind of budgeting has several cons or detractions from it that make it something that isn't the best for business. Um, One of those things is that sometimes budgets have incentives tied to them that really aren't good, and that they bring about sometimes illegal and sometimes just bad business practices that aren't what a business wants. Some of those things are like bonuses that are tied to budgets or coming in under budget. This will give someone the incentive to not spend money when sometimes that's not the right choice. Sometimes you need to spend money to make money, and budgets put these pressures on people to not spend, and in doing that it can lose profitability for the company or other circumstances. Budgets Modern companies are trying to employ or empower their employees, and budgets tend to confine people in terms of money and time and resources spent, and so they are not able to change business practices and innovate because they're afraid of coming in over budget or under budget or whatever the problem may be. And so there's a lot of things to budgets that interfere with the ability of a company to adapt, and so abandoning those budgets can be very helpful in furthering your business and in competing in the modern world. Um, so when we talk about possibly getting rid of budgets, what do you replace it with? You have to have benchmarks, and you have to have the ability to measure how your company's doing. And so some companies are abandoning the typical budgets in terms of money and time, and they're turning to more long-term goals like financial ratios, um, where you can compare how you've done in this period to prior periods, and not so much you will meet this amount of sales this quarter. It's more of a looking back goal as it is to predetermine and looking forward. Um, another alternative or another alternative way of measuring yourself is really things that are industry specific. And so in an industry where maybe sales aren't the best performance indicator, you may be able to set goals and allow your employees to innovate and try to change things based on something that really does measure performance in your industry. And again, that'll change from industry to industry. But this kind of budgeting or planning allows the company to be broken up into a lot smaller units that have more autonomy, and so they can make decisions for themselves instead of being dictated to. Uh, some of the steps for breaking free of budgets or changing how you plan is to identify goals of the company long term, communicate those goals to the company, and then allow the people in the company to make the decisions that they need. Uh, Something that comes along with traditional budgets is you are usually given a predetermined amount of resources, whether that's time or money or whatever it might be. That's determined before the fact, and then throughout the year, that is what you need to stick to, even if there are circumstances that may facilitate the need for more or for less. And so the old budgeting would encourage uh, you need to spend it or you're going to lose it, basically. And so that doesn't exist if you get rid of budgeting, and so the idea of hoarding money will be gone, and instead you use money where you should, and that will help in the cash flows of the company. So everything is relative in the modern era instead of having things be predetermined and set. Um, the idea that everything needs to be set at the beginning of the year and that it can't adapt throughout the year needs to be abandoned, because that will help in the adaptability of the company, which really ends up being uh, profitable for the company. And that has been seen in the article. It talks about Scandinavian banks that have gotten rid of budgeting and they've seen the effects of it. So who needs budgets in the modern age? In the traditional sense of budgeting, it might need to be done away with, and that the idea of communicating your goals and measurements to the company can be done in a more adaptable and fast-paced way.